everyone. Thank you for joining us for Idaho Environmental Forum's Legislative Week. We are here in day 2 with Speaker Scott Bedke. He always joins us and gives us a legislative preview, kind of overall, and then also specifically on natural resource policy issues. So without further ado, I might hand it off to you to kind of lay the land and then ask a couple questions.
All right, I apologize for my voice here up front. I am negative tested, but traditional cold.
But very positive about the legislative session.
But very positive. So we will have a couple of challenges this year. And well, actually we'll have 1,500,000,000 of them. We're looking at a record surplus. And to call it a record surplus in Idaho, I mean, doesn't really do justice to how big this is when compared to the rest of the revenue stream. So, but we got to keep in mind a couple of things. Number one, it's one-time money. And number two, not all of it is in the bank yet. And, but having said that, it is going to give us a bunch of opportunity, and that will be one of the major drivers I predict in the governor's budget. It will be one of the things that will occupy our time as to tax policy and how best to do that. You know, I think some of the principles that will guide us in those decisions, though, will be, you know, just as if, you know, in our family budgets, if we came into some money, well, what would we do with that? Well, we'd probably pay off all of our debt that we could. Any deferred maintenance, repairs that we had on our house or cars or whatever, we would get things fixed. And I think that you'll see, you know, the legislature coming forward with those types of things that will lower the cost of our overhead going forward. And you know, so of course, we've seen a glimpse of the governor's budget, and I think there'll be general agreement on how best to use that surplus to do it in a way that benefits Idaho out in the future. So anyway, I think that's pretty exciting. We have, like I say, we have some opportunity to do that. So if we're having this kind of surplus, then there'll be a large section of our caucus that will say, well, if we have more money than we are spending, then that means our tax rates are too high. And so I think I'm almost sure that there will be a push to lower either income tax rates or possibly even the sales tax across the board. And you know, so and I know that the chairman is working on those types of things already, and is you know, it's not a done deal yet, but I do think that there will be overall income tax reductions, and you know, but there'll be a talk about other things as well. In fact, it came up last night in Idaho Falls. You know, why don't we just lower the sales tax across the board for everyone by a point? And that seemed to get general support in that room. I don't know that the numbers work, no. I mean, but there'll be plenty of discussion on tax policy. I think, and then it'll morph over into, you know, maintaining a positive business climate here in the state, and that, you know, that means workforce development. If we're going to have people graduating with degrees ready to go into jobs, then that's going to start in kindergarten, literally. And so there'll be concerns about some of the slippage that I think that the preliminary data shows on our reading scores, that we've slipped a little bit there. Mm-hmm. I know the governor is very motivated, as are the rest of us, of making sure that Johnny and Sally can read at grade level when they leave the 3rd grade. And so I think there'll be an emphasis on that. I don't think it'll be a one-size-fits-all mandate from the state, though. It'll probably be, here's money to you local school districts. You have, you know where your problems are, go fix them. And I think that we'll try to beef up the literacy program. And I would be very supportive of that. You know, as parents and grandparents, we're absolutely vested in these kids getting a good education, because we all know that that's where success starts. And so I think that'll be a driver this year as well. Everybody asks me if we're going to be as long this year as we were last year, and the answer is no, for this reason. It's an election year and it's a redistricting year. And there's nothing that makes a legislator more homesick than having someone back home file against them. And they can't be home campaigning. And so I think that'll reduce the length of the session. But in addition, there's a lot of, there's a handful of House members that are going to run for the Senate, and we have a bunch of retirements.
Lots of changes on the
There'll be
horizon.
a lot of changes. Next year's legislature will be way different than this year, I believe. And so all of that will, I'm hoping adds up into an all business type session. We get the budget set, we get these policies changed. We properly and prudently take care of this money, and we get out by the 25th of March.
Okay, I was gonna say May sounds terrible, but yes, March sounds great. So you mentioned the surplus that the state has over $1 billion, almost $2 billion. We also have a lot of money coming in from the feds, whether that be through continued ARPA funding and spending or this infrastructure money that's coming down the pipe as well. Obviously, a lot of that's focused on roads, bridges, broadband, things like that, but also some opportunity for water projects.
Exactly.
What are you seeing on that
And
front?
as late as this morning,
Federal guidance, right?
Federal guidance
Finally.
and all of our aquifer type projects can be paid for out of ARPA. The raising of Anderson can be paid out of ARPA. The Mountain Home pipeline project can be paid out of that, and those are very important projects to the state. But being able to pay for them with federal dollars backs out the state money that we've already committed to those projects, and so this will be a gift that gives in other parts of the state. Obviously, we're in a drought, or have been in a drought, and so water conservation, water management is going to be paramount going forward. I mean, they don't call this the arid west for no reason. And while we've been blessed with some good storms here, we are at this point, we're certainly not out of the woods. And and of course, we're in the fastest growing state in the union, and so there's going to be more increased competition for the same amount of water, and so conflicts are could happen, and we want to make sure we're squared away policy-wise on and not we can make the decisions as long as it's an academic type decision, but when you're up against it and shutting people off or whatever, then the decision has an emotional component to it that makes it much harder. And I think we've laid the groundwork pretty well over the last 5 years and we're situated as well as we can be, but we could use another snowstorm.
Yes, well,
Or two.
we certainly agree with that as well. You mentioned the competition for more water and some of the conflict. When I think of you and your water work, one of the major kind of milestones and accomplishments you've had is helping negotiate the surface water groundwater agreement. And I was reading in the paper a while back that you were kind of discussing the likelihood and probability that some of those milestones in years 2023 and 2026, I believe, may start to be a challenge. So what are you seeing there in terms of next steps and what we do there as a state?
Well, it's going to require everyone to come to the table again. It looks like we'll be okay for the 2023 milestone, but the 2026 one, again, these were we wanted the aquifer to rebound and to heal, or to replenish, and then get to certain levels based on the Sentinel well readings by certain dates. And it looks like we'll hit the 2023 one because we had such good water years. But the 2026 one, the slope of the line is now dropped down, so that if we continue, we won't hit the 2026. Now, I don't know that that's the end of the world. The same statesmen that were in the Surface Water Coalition that struck this agreement, and the same statesmen that were in the groundwater community came together, and they created an adaptive management or adaptive agreement, so that if this, then that. And so baked into the agreement are some if-then clauses. And it's going to, so everything is going to have to sit down and iron that out. We've learned a lot in the last 5 years. And trust has been developed, relationships have been developed, and so I'm optimistic that with, I don't know if we even need to tweak the agreement, but everybody needs to understand where we are, and of course they sit down often, but we got to make sure that this all doesn't blow up because of back-to-back dry years.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad you'll still be there to help facilitate those conversations.
Plus, our local power company is better served with more water as well. So it all works together, and I think that we've made some very significant strides in working together in the various stakeholders in the water community.
Yes, obviously I'm a bit biased myself, but I do think that water is certainly the lifeblood of our economy, and
Right.
the more growth we see, the more important solving these issues early is important,
Right.
and it needs to happen.
Well, let's not wait to the last minute. I know in the audience today there'll be stakeholders on this very issue, and if I had any advice to give them, it would be to let's start talking sooner rather than later, and avoid some of the problems that inevitably happen if we wait too long.
Well, and speaking of that, shifting gears a little bit, still within the vein of water, I know just enough about this to be dangerous, but my understanding is that the Department of Interior just asked the Department of Water Resources to do some adjudicating on this de minimis returns within stock water rights. I know this is how you got into the world of politics, so kind of
Right.
interested to hear what your thoughts are on that ruling and request from the feds.
Well, this was something that everyone assumed we weren't going to have to worry about back in the early days of the Snake River Basin adjudication. And then some things have changed. In fact, that's how like you said, I got into, I was always in politics to a point, but I got really motivated in the early days of the adjudication because as a federal land rancher, our whole permit system in the BLM and the Forest Service was based on the fact that we had a state-based water right to water our cattle. And we're going back to tailored grazing, we're going back to the Forest Service Organic Act. And those were things that we had to show in order to qualify for a permit. All right, fast forward to the Snake River Basin adjudication. Any water use within the Snake River Basin, we had to claim that use or identify that use. And so many of us spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and going out and pinpointing every stream, seep, and mud hole out on all of the federal land. And then we made a claim on that as per the adjudication process. What irritated me at the time, if you'll indulge me, is that we did all of this, I did all of this, and then I'll be darned, it's been 20 years so I can use soft language. But the state of Idaho recommended all of these claims that we had done to the federal government. And then we fast forward to the Joyce decision of the Idaho State Supreme Court that basically said, you can't do that. You can only put water to beneficial use in Idaho if you own the livestock. The federal government doesn't own the livestock, so they're going to have to work with the permittees to create some agreement. And so the Joyce, so the Lowry family, the Nelson family won on that case, and that tipped on its ear the livestock part of the adjudication. All right, so that's where we are right now, and so if you've been watching the state legislature closely, you'll notice that we have passed laws that basically codify the Joyce decision in Idaho statute. And so you have all of the federal government was granted these water rights, but by the Joyce rationale, they've not been putting in the beneficial use. If you have a water right in Idaho, you don't put the beneficial use, it's forfeited.
Yeah.
And so that, those lines are going to cross, and I think they're saying, Interior is saying, well, we got to start over again and do it over again. And I don't know that we will. Maybe there needs to be a test case or two run up the flagpole, much like we did in the adjudication process, and get a basin-wise decision, and then apply that basin-wide decision to all of these various rights. But there's like a lot of them.
Yeah, I didn't realize. That's actually a pretty good education for me on how kind of monumental and big that this proposal is.
It took a lot of work to identify on a map and a GPS down to 10-acre descriptions everywhere. It was a lot of work.
It turns out we have quite a bit of federal land to do
turns
that.
out.
So
It turns out, and there's only a limited number of people out there that know the area like the back of their hand that can go out and identify all of that. In our case, the federal government came in and when you make the filing, then it's a public document. Well, they didn't go out and do any surveying, they just took ours. And anyway.
I appreciate the trust, I guess.
Well, anyway, it got me motivated back in the day.
Yes, and still keeping it going on water issues. Any kind of other parting words or thoughts about natural resource issues that you'd like to share with us?
Well, we are blessed to live in Idaho, and we have a unique mix of commerce and industry and outdoor recreation, and this is the best place to live in the nation and the world as far as I'm concerned. And so we all have a responsibility to maintain that. Yet we've been discovered. There are a lot of people moving here, and so there's going to inevitably be conflicts. And we just have to work through those. We know how to do it, we just got to do it. So.
Well, I certainly think you guys will have your work cut out for you, but you all heard it and I heard it. Hope is
March 25th.
Yeah, March 25th, and all focused on business. So certainly hope that's the case. Appreciate you all joining us. Again, Jen Visser with the Idaho Environmental Forum Board, Speaker Scott Bedke. Probably our last go with you, at least in this post. Apparently you're running from a different office, so we won't be having you as speaker anymore.
Well, not as speaker, but I will come and speak.
Perfect.
And I can tell Myers that I don't want to break the string of consecutive meetings. So
we like it. Well, we'll hold you to it. Appreciate you all joining. And again, thank you to our sponsors. We certainly can't do any of this virtual work or any of the work that we do without your support. So thank you to all of you. If you'd like more information about the Idaho Environmental Forum, please check out our website, theidahoenvironmentalforum.org.